Good morning, my reader friends. My name is Erin Rogoff, and welcome back to my BookTube channel, where today we will be discussing Quarantine the Saints by Lex Thomas. Quarantine the Saints is a young adult fiction, science fiction novel, and it is book 2 of the Quarantine series. And in that series, we have Quarantine the Loners, Quarantine the Saints, Quarantine the Burnouts, and Quarantine the Giant. I have all of the books in the series, and I am now about to read book 3, but I wanted to get this video in before I started reading that book. Readers who read Quarantine the Saints also enjoyed Monument 14 by Emmy Laybourne. I have this book. Plagueland by Alex Scarrow. I also have this book. The Compound and The Fallout, both by S.A. Bodine. A cross between the Gone series and The Lord of the Flies, Quarantine the Saints continues this frenetically paced and scary young adult series that illustrates just how deadly high school can be. I never remembered high school to be quite like a dystopian, murderous, bloodthirsty craze, but to each their own, right? After the explosion went off in book 1, all the kids' hair fell out and grew in white, and now, according to your high school social clique, you have a color to dye your hair to tell everyone where you belong. According to the colors, those who have yellow hair are either varsity or the pretty ones, white is the loners, black is the skaters, blue is the nerds, and red is the sluts. The book's words, not mine. After David flees McKinley High School, a bus comes crashing into the school and blocks off the only exit and introduces new teens and new character Gates into the high school. They're from St. Patrick's private school, so they're nicknamed the Saints, although I highly doubt that any of them are truly saint-worthy or saint-like, whatever you want to call it. David's brother Will and his girlfriend Lucy see one of the Saints with a white eye patch. And the Saint with the eye patch says he got it off a dead body with a mangled eye. Could it have been David? The teens in McKinley High are approached by suited-up parents who explain that the virus got out and was killing adults, so the teens who made it out of McKinley High School are as good as dead if they can't hide from the military. So are these teens really safer inside the school, or is this just another level of terror? The Loners disband, so what will happen now? Will wants to preserve the Loners because of David's legacy, and Lucy has been invited to join the Sluts. During another food drop, where the former military, now rogue parents drop crates of food, Sam strikes the Loners and beats up Will, causing him an epileptic seizure, and the rest of the Loners abandon the clique except for Lucy, who wants to stay with Will. Will and Lucy then get into a fight, and Lucy leaves Will as well. In the varsity/pretty ones territory, Sam slaps Hillary and knocks out her tooth, so she's losing her mind over not wanting anyone to know. So her solution is, when in doubt, super glue, but sorry, sweetheart, that isn't going to work forever. Sam is dethroned from varsity and Hillary leaves him, but when Hillary finds out that the new head of varsity is gay, she realizes that she can't seduce him into giving her power. So what will she do now? Back in the Loners territory, Lucy is gone and Will has to fend for himself. He finds a secret stash of food and is chased by some burnouts and winds up in the Saints territory. Are they dangerous or are they not? The Saints are partying it up with drinking and hooking up and celebrating their hoard of alcohol while asking Will about life in McKinley before the Saints arrived. Meanwhile, Lucy is initiated into the clique of the Sluts when she proves herself by fighting back against the new character, Lips. And then she gets congratulations from the lead slut, who is nicknamed Violent. The Saints welcome Will into their clique after another food drop, where they capture Sam and hold him for ransom to get everything that he and the other McKinley students want, including Will's epilepsy medications. And then Gates has an emotional crash, so we are left wondering why. It was at this point that I wondered if Gates has ADHD or bipolar disorder, because I have both of them. He can go at 200% all the time, and then he seems really tired in the quiet moments, which is something that I have gone through repeatedly in my own experience with bipolar disorder. Also, Gates can't focus on what people are saying all the time, so that leads me to believe that he had ADHD. And then he also seems to have manic highs and lows, which I have also experienced in the past. Gates has another low, and Will tries to perk him up by telling him about finding a futuristic cube car. That's the best way I can describe it. And they take it for a spin around the school. Gates chases the high of adrenaline and speeds the cube car down a stairway, bailing at the last second with Will. Gates instantly worries that Will is going to call him crazy, but Will says that they should find a faster cube car, and Gates thinks to himself, wow, I have just found my new best friend. Gates and Will then have a party on the quad, and Gates gathers everyone together while Will makes an entrance with a dirt bike that Gates managed to get his hands on. How? Through the rebel parents. At this point, Lucy has a date to the quad party. His name is Bartholomew, and he's in the nerd clique, but is Lucy really over David? I think not. Lucy then goes on a steamy date with Bartholomew, and then when Will finds her to tell her that he loves her, she realizes that Bartholomew isn't the one she wants to be with. So again, does she want to be with David, or does she want to be with Will? Because in the end, you can't be with both. You can only choose one or the other. Lucy soon asks Bartholomew if he loves her. No. And she says that she doesn't really love him either. And Lucy wants to really be in love with someone before she starts hooking up with them. Don't worry, Lucy does not sleep with Bartholomew after all. I was worried about that, not gonna happen, so don't worry about that. Lucy also goes looking for Will and then finds Hillary alone, and thinking that she could get in a few punches, she confronts Hillary, big mistake, and winds up attacked by the pretty ones. Eventually, Will grows tired of Gates' craziness, but Gates won't leave him alone, which is kind of obsessive, I think. I mean, he will not let him be on his own for 2 minutes without thinking, oh, Will doesn't like me anymore because he doesn't want to be in my presence 24/7. No, he just wants a breath of fresh air away from you. Sam soon escapes from Gates and goes on the run inside the school, and everyone goes on the hunt for him, so where could he be? Will and Gates then search for Sam together, and Gates has another meltdown. It's basically the Mount Everest of meltdowns, really, and it is so insane. Gates attacks Will and threatens him with a knife. Gates then tells Will that he loves him and breaks down in tears, and then one of Gates' friends meets up with them and reveals the truth about Gates' brother Colton's death, which was a total lie from start to finish. And that story where Gates' brother died, it wasn't the military guy who shot Colton in the first place. It was a lie. Gates was the one who killed Colton, but it was an accident. Or is that what we are led to believe? Will then escapes from Gates after Gates kills his second in command, and then he has Lucy on his mind. Will lashing out at Lucy was a big mistake, and he shouldn't have let her go. After searching for Lucy, Will finds her in the Sluts territory, and they go back to a secret place where Will can hide from Gates. Will and Lucy then hook up in this copy room that no one knows about, and Lucy, of the Sluts, lost her V card to Will. That was just so disturbing in my own mind. I'm not sure how anyone else feels about that, but that kind of made me queasy just reading it, because Lucy and David belong together. That is my personal belief. Anyway, Lucy goes back to the Sluts and finds a toothless Hillary in the bathroom tending to her MIA tooth with a strip of tape. Lucy then grabs Hillary's tooth and flushes it down the toilet, then runs away. Hillary swears to rip out every tooth in Lucy's skull for crossing her again. Then Lucy runs right into the Saints' territory, and she is captured by Gates, and he wants Will back. Will is then taken prisoner by the Sluts, who also want Lucy back, so there's going to be a trade-off. Meanwhile, Sam is killed, and I will not spoil how because I want you to read the book, and it is just almost not funny, but it is interesting how he dies. And you wouldn't really think that that would necessarily happen, but it did in this book. There's a trade-off between the sluts and the saints, and things turn into a huge and bloody war zone. Will starts to have a nosebleed, and he and Lucy now know that the virus is leaving Will, so he has to get away from all the teens before he dies too. Will then leaves McKinley before the virus proves fatal to him, and Lucy kills Gates. When Will is out, he then hears someone call his name, and it's David. David is alive. There is so much to say. I have seen mixed reviews for the sequel to Quarantine the Loners, but I personally loved this book. Halfway through reading the book, I figured that Gates had ADHD or bipolar disorder, but when he was really seeing things that weren't really there, I started to think that he had schizophrenia. And I know this might sound vain, but the scene that bothered me most, not the bloodthirsty battle scenes or having throats ripped out or having a car run you over or anything like that. The scene that bothered me most was when Lucy got her hair cut off by Hillary and the rest of the pretty ones. That just made me cringe when I read that scene. When Will and Lucy hooked up, I was in shock and left so confused. Doesn't Lucy still love David? There's this love triangle between brothers, David and Will, and Lucy. And that is just odd to me because Lucy loves David. David is thought dead. Lucy hooks up with Will. I don't know what's going to happen to Will, but Lucy eventually supposedly winds up with David, or so I hear. So I'm just wondering, that's kind of disturbing. To me, anyway. Also, the way that Sam is killed is gruesome and unexpected, but again, I am not spoiling this one for you. Also, the way that Lucy kills Gates is rather unique in a way that involves his motorbike. As I was reading that scene, I was like, oh my god, oy vey! Amazon rates the book 4.7 out of 5 stars. Barnes & Noble rates the book 4.5 out of 5 stars. Goodreads rates the book 4.1 out of 5 stars. And my rating, 5 out of 5 stars hands down. Anyway, that is all for today, so if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button to show some support, subscribe to my BookTube channel to get more videos like this, turn those notifications on to be notified when I have a brand new video uploaded. Keep on reading and have a great day, everyone! And Sam strikes the loners and beats up Will, causing him to have an epileptic